Okay, hello, WashU parents and families. My name is Mimi Mudd, and I want to welcome you to our pre-recorded edition of the Family Webinar Series. I'm the Assistant Director of Parent and Family Programs, and I'm joined by my colleague, Dr. Andrew Collings, who is the Director of the Learning Center. Thank you for joining us for this conversation on academic support, focusing on the Learning Center. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Andrew so he can give us an overview of the resources and opportunities available.
All right. Thanks so much, Mimi. And hi, everyone. Hi, parents. I am Andrew Collings. I am the director of the Learning Center. I'm also an alum of WashU, so I do remember whenever I see the, fresh, new faces showing up on campus in August and September, I'm taken back to my time when I first came here, terrified and not really knowing what I was doing or how to succeed in college. And that's part of the reason that I, came to work at the Learning Center, because I want to, help students who are going through the same things that I went through way back when to succeed and get ahead at the college level. So just a little bit about the Learning Center, bit overview. We're the hub of academic support here on campus. We have 5 professional staff members and hundreds of student employees who work as peer mentors, leaders, and coaches to help students make that transition from the high school to the college level. We want to, improve students' learning outcomes, provide equitable access to support, normalize help-seeking behavior. And then, as I mentioned, a lot of our employees are students. And so another part of our mission is to create campus leaders. Right. So I mentioned we have a lot of different positions: peer mentors, coaches, leaders. We have 5 different programs that are available to first-year students. Our largest and oldest one is peer-led team learning. That is a structured group study workshop program that's associated with some of those foundational STEM courses, so general chemistry, the calculus courses, and the introductory physics course sequence. So the way PLTL works is that students sign up for to join a PLTL group at the beginning of the semester, usually roll in the first week of classes. What happens then is we get about 1,300 to 1,500 requests to join a group. We put folks into groups of about 8 to 10 students. They meet on the weekends or on Monday evenings, and they work through a packet of challenging problems. The emphasis is on problem solving, strategies, collaboration, and critical thinking skill development. The packets are challenging. They're meant to sort of be the final building blocks in students' understanding and comprehension of the topics for that week in class. If students participate enough over the course of the semester, if they, meet the attendance threshold, they do receive a course credit for participating in PLTL. Our second largest program is called Residential Peer Mentoring. This, in comparison to PLTL, which is much more structured, RPM is unstructured, it's informal, it's held in residential college spaces, so classrooms, seminar rooms, study spaces over on the South 40. It is a sort of come in whenever you want, leave whenever you want, get help with whatever you need help with sort of situation. Drop in, you don't have to sign up. Anyone in the class is welcome. Or if you just want to hang out and eat snacks and talk with other folks, get to know other folks in the class, students can do that. I think we have about 24 RPMs working this semester, and they help with the general chemistry and calculus sequence. Drop-in academic mentoring is very similar to RPM. The only difference is that it supports a much broader array of courses, and most of the sessions are, instead of being held in residential college spaces, are held in Danforth campus classrooms. But similar to RPM, there's no sign-up required. It's informal. Students can come in and get help with whether it's help with the homework that's due later in the week, or preparing for an upcoming quiz or a test. And again, these I will mention you'll hear this term mentoring, and it might be confusing to some people. Why do you call it mentoring instead of tutoring? Because it is course-based. And the reason that we talk about mentoring is, whereas tutoring, you think of helping students master course content. And of course, we want to help students with that as well, but mentoring is much more multidimensional, right? It goes beyond providing course support by also helping students develop the skill of learning how to learn. So modeling and teaching helpful skills and behaviors, sharing their own experiences, connecting students with campus resources, and facilitating a group learning environment. Our last course-based program that I wanted to mention is matched academic mentoring. So we have all of these other course-based supports, but sometimes that does not work for people, whether because of timing or because someone needs more personalized support if they have a knowledge gap, if they've fallen behind from illness or some other reason, if they're on academic action or whatever the case might be. We do have a small group program where students can request support, and they'll be matched with a mentor for up to 2 courses. The groups typically start out as one-on-one, but then over the course of the semester, as more people request support, more people may be added to the group. But groups are capped at 3 or 4 students. Typically, groups are 2, maybe 3 in size. As you can see, the courses supported are much larger, and this is not an exhaustive list. These are the ones that we most commonly get requests about. But last year we supported I think 52 different courses or sequences of courses. So this is just sort of touching the surface of what we can do in terms of course support. The last program I'll mention is our newest and our one that's growing, or that we're hoping to grow, and that is academic skills peer coaching. This, rather than being course-based, is focused more on those underlying academic skills: time management, study strategies, procrastination, and motivation. They can even help with writing emails to professors if your student is scared or a bit nervous about doing that. Students can sign up for appointments. They last for 30 minutes. They can indicate in advance what exactly they want to work on. A lot of students might just come in for help with one thing, but this is also a way for your student to establish maybe like an accountability buddy. So someone that they can sign up to meet with, every week, every couple of weeks. We do have the availability for that. I think we have about 10 peer coaches working this semester. Most of the sessions, or most of the appointments, are available in the late afternoon, early evening. If that does not work for students, we also welcome folks to drop in, and if a professional staff member is available, they can meet with them to talk one-on-one. We also have a wide host of on-demand academic skills resources that are available on our website. So if you're looking for something, hopefully they're not up this late, but if it's 1 a.m. and you're looking for time management help, we've got some digital resources that students can find on our website. If students are looking to meet with someone in person, our office is on the lower level of the Mallinckrodt Center. If your students know where Subway is or the bookstore is, it's down the stairs from that. We are located right next to the Writing Center, which is another amazing resource for your students here on campus. We're typically available 9 to 4, Monday through Friday. We can also be reached by email or phone. And we also do have an Instagram. We're not the best at social media, but we try to get some, programming information out there. So if you want to give us a follow, we'd appreciate it.
Great. Thank you so much, Andrew, for that information. Now we have a couple of commonly asked questions. So first question for you, what individual tutoring options are available for students both on and off campus?
Right. So as you probably noticed from my presentation, we do not, guarantee one-on-one support. I mentioned that the match mentoring, the groups typically start out as one-on-one. Sometimes they do stay as a one-on-one situation. Drop-in mentoring or RPM, residential peer mentoring, some sessions aren't very busy. And so students can get very, individualized, personalized support from our mentors. However, it is not guaranteed. We do have a big focus on small group mentoring. We really think that the evidence and research backs the positive influence on students for having a collaborative, small, close-knit learning environment with their peers and the benefits that come from that. That being said, there are a lot of other options on campus. We're not the only academic support unit. Of course, there's the Writing Center, which offers one-on-one support for any sort of writing thing, from essays to applications to oral presentations. There is the Olin Business School has some one-on-one tutoring available, as does the McKelvey School of Engineering. I won't get into, there are some particulars about if you're an engineering student, you can get certain types of support. If you're a non-engineering student, you can get support for engineering courses. So I won't, get too much into specifics, but there are options on campus outside the Learning Center for one-on-one support. There are the departments have support as well that can be one-on-one. So for instance, Romance, Languages, and Literature has support one-on-one tutoring for some of the languages. Philosophy has a logic lab. The Math and Stats department has a math and stats help room. Sorry, math and stats are now two different departments, but there still is the math and stats help room, which is staffed by undergraduate and graduate TAs. They also maintain a list of private tutors, and you may see that some departments will maintain lists of private tutors. So in the instance where you're looking for one-on-one tutoring, it's often best to first try reaching out to the department itself to see if a list like that is maintained. Of course, there are also things like varsity tutors and other services like that that are, third party and that your students could reach out to. But on campus, all services are free. So at the Learning Center, everything is free. Same for the Writing Center, the Engineering School and Olin Business School. So that's one of the big benefits for the on-campus support.
Definitely. Great. Okay, next question. Does the Learning Center provide any specialized support for students with accommodations for their courses?
That's a great question. We don't have anything that's like specifically for students with accommodations. I will say that we approach all of our programming with an eye towards universal design. So things that will be helpful for students without accommodations as well as for students with accommodations. That being said, if a student has an accommodation, they may be, that would, I'd say match mentoring is probably the best option if it's an issue with, participating in a large group setting such as PLTL or residential peer mentoring, where you're more likely to get a lot of people that can be distracting or have issues in terms of processing things like that. So I would say that match mentoring is probably the way to go. Again, we can't guarantee one-on-one support, but you are getting that more individualized support. And our students, all of our student employees go through a training course, a semester-long training course where they work on things, including inclusive and equitable facilitation strategies to make sure that the learning environments that they're creating are welcoming and inclusive for students regardless of educational background, accommodations, what have you.
Great. And that actually relates to the next question. So you mentioned that all of your programs are peer-based. How do students qualify to work for the Learning Center? And then if you want to touch upon more of the training that they undergo.
Great. Yes. So Most of our students are involved, most of our student employees are involved in some of the course-based programs, peer-led team learning, academic mentoring, residential peer mentoring. So typically to qualify for one of those programs, you need to have some above an A minus in the course that you would like to support. Um, we then have an application process that starts in the spring. So applications are published in early January, and students can apply throughout the month of January and early February for positions with us. We then do a intensive review and screening process. We do interviews with the candidates, and we typically employ or hire somewhere around like 100 to 150 new student employees each year. And we typically have on staff somewhere around 350 students every year. So lots of different opportunities and a lot of different programs that fit, from, I can only work 2 hours a week to, I have all the time in the world to support other students, whether the students are looking for something a little more flexible or something that's like, I can only work on weekends. That's it. We've got, opportunities available for folks. They won't start working, however, until the following fall. So we'll be starting hiring for fall 2025 in spring 2025. Students who are employed with us will be expected to take a course called Seminar in Academic Mentoring, where they sort of get that toolkit for being a good student worker who's working with their peers. So they'll talk about facilitation strategies, communication, setting boundaries. They'll talk about growth mindset, inclusive facilitation, metacognition, active learning. I don't need to, the list goes on, but it's we want our students to be well-rounded, effective supporters of their peers, but it's also a professional development opportunity, and the stuff that they learn in the course can be literally utilized in any collaborative or leadership situation. So we see a lot of our folks go on to other roles on campus as TAs, as WUSAs, as RAs, and so we like to think that we help them in that professional development process.
And just a follow up to that, what should students do if they're interested in working for the Learning Center?
We'll be doing some open houses later this semester. So we'll do some I don't know, maybe some hot chocolate and cookie meet and greets here at the end of the semester when it starts getting cold, and then people can reach out to us either by phone or email or drop by to let us know that they're interested. We'll put them on a mailing list, and we usually blast out our applications are opened to a lot of the classes that we support and to anyone who expresses interest. So we'll also be posting things on Handshake, which is where a lot of on-campus jobs are posted. So there'll be a lot of different ways for folks to know when the application is open and we're accepting invitations. I think we typically get somewhere around like 500 applications per application cycle.
Great. And then last question. So a commonly asked question from parents and family members is that their student was very high achieving in high school, but they're struggling academically here at WashU. Can you speak to, is this a typical experience? And what are the first steps you would suggest a parent encourage their student to take if they're having this experience?
That's a great question, and one that we get a lot. So if your student is feeling that way, they are not alone. It was something that I experienced as a student coming in here. I was high achieving. I studied hard in high school, but I don't think that the high school climate and the structure of high school necessarily prepared me as well as I might have liked for the college experience, right? You're going from a very structured, it's been a while, so it's like 8 to 3, like all day you're in class, you're going from one activity to another. Maybe you've got extracurriculars there right after school. So your day is very structured, it's very regimented. Then you get to college and you're taking 4 or 5 classes, hopefully not more than 6 classes. They're spread out. They meet for a couple hours a week. And what students do in the meantime, right, is it's really up to them because they don't have that structure anymore. So a lot of folks come in not having the time management skills and strategies that are going to help them succeed. So it really is eye-opening those first couple of weeks. And I think there's also an element of, the uh, what students are being, the skills and approaches to content, the course content. I think there's a different, higher order of challenge that students are expected to face at the college level, right? So Bloom's taxonomy, for instance, says that there are different levels of learning, right? At the lower level, you have remembering and understanding, and then the higher orders of applying information, analyzing information, evaluating, and creating. I think at the high school level, you're much more at home in the remembering and understanding, right? Where you're regurgitating information, where you're taking down notes word for word. You're not being asked to summarize and evaluate and apply in new contexts and scenarios, or at least not to the same extent. So I think that's another component here that students struggle with meeting those new demands and expectations, both in terms of being able to manage their time and how they process and utilize information that's gleaned in class. They're not going to be able to just get by copying down word for word what the professor says in lecture. They're not going to be able to just, read and reread the same, textbook or short story and be able to, be as successful as they might like. So what I would recommend is asking for help. That's the biggest thing. No one's gotten through life entirely on their own. But a lot of people come into college thinking that it's a sign of weakness or that they don't belong or that they're an imposter if they feel like they need to ask for help. But talking to your instructors, your TAs, your RAs. I mean, there's this entire support ecosystem here on campus, and all students need to do is reach out to it, and they'll get put in touch with the right resources for for what they need, what situation they're going through. It's just I think that people are too afraid to ask for help to make that first step. But they realize very quickly that there are a lot of people here on campus that are here to help them succeed and want to see them succeed. And I think the biggest resource that people forget about is each other, right? Their peers, right? Because everyone else is probably, they look cool, calm, and composed on the outside, but internally they're probably going through the same exact thing. So I think the first thing students should do is talk to each other, and get it out there that, hey, I'm having a tough time. And I think that not only helps with a sense of belonging on campus, that they're not going through it alone, but also can create connections and get them in touch with a lot of different resources that they might not otherwise have been aware of.
Thank you, Andrew, for those answers and all of the helpful information you shared. Parents and families, we hope you found this video informative and that you enjoy this pre-recorded option for Family Webinar Series. I want to plug checking out our family's website in order to see other pre-recorded videos, recordings from the past, upcoming live webinars. So it's our families.washu.edu website. And I just want to say thank you again, Andrew, and goodbye, everyone. We hope you have a good rest of your day. Okay.